Hello and welcome to another week at CPDLF. We are going to be learning about World War One this week. You guys just finished up learning about the women's suffrage movement, the progressive era. Now there's some unsettling events in Europe, and it's going to lead up to World War One. So this is the area that we are focusing on this week. So you're going to be doing unsettling events in Europe, new war, old strategies, America enters the conflict, early attempt at world peace, and then you'll take the quiz on this. So it's nicely broken up. Please make sure you're taking notes because there is a lot of material, okay? Or print or do whatever you need to do just so that you do have some information when you go to take the quiz. Because like I said, it's great information, it's interesting information, but there is a little bit, it's a little bit much, okay? So don't try to, go in thinking that you're just going to remember everything. It's always good to, like I said, take some notes and then revisit these notes before you take your quiz, okay? So let's talk about 3.5. So you're going to start with unsettling events in Europe, and it's going to talk about the reasons for World War One, and it's going to go through and, show you some pictures, and you'll better understand the idea of imperialism and people making alliances. And then you're going to go on to Unit 3.16, which is New War, Old Strategies. So they use some old strategies, and it's going to talk about exactly why World War One started, the death of Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife. It's going to go into that discussion. It's going to talk about the different fronts, and you'll work your way through that unit. And then you're going to get to why the United States had to enter the conflict. For quite some time, we stayed adamant about staying neutral. Okay, President Wilson was saying, we're staying neutral. We don't need to get involved in this. And then this lesson is going to talk about why exactly did we get involved. Okay, and then we move on to Unit 3.18, an early attempt at world peace. It's going to talk about, why Germany lost the war. It's going to talk about why they were forced to take the blame. President Wilson's 14 points. So it'll go through that. And then eventually how, the United States had the Harlem Renaissance and everything after the war and sort of a revival of culture. Because during World War One, everyone was making sacrifices, and that was expected. People had their gardens growing and, maybe wouldn't eat meat all but a few times a week, maybe 2 times, because they were making sacrifices so that maybe they could save some money, send it overseas, help the war effort. It was all about helping the war. Even people who were opposed to the war still felt that it was their patriotic duty to help. And then you're going to end with Unit 3.19, which is the quiz on the First World War. Oh, sorry about the little background noise there. I have a video saved to play for you guys and start playing already. Okay, so that is what you're going to be learning this week. So units 3.15 to unit 3.19. If you are behind, make sure that you are doing your best to get caught up. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer to do a lesson than other weeks, and that's fine, but you need to make sure that you allot enough time to get everything done. So whether you want to do all 5 lessons on the same day, or if you want to spread them out, it's completely up to you, okay? But just make sure that you are completing the work for this week. And like I said, if you want to work ahead, you're more than welcome to. The review and the test then is going to be for next week. Okay, so I have a little video. It's one thing you should know about World War One, and there are some people discussing what they feel that you should know, and I'm going to play the video for you. So here we go.
One thing that you should know about World War One, it brought us into the modern era.
And today, we live in the world that World War One shaped.
For Americans in particular, it brought Americans firmly into the 20th century and into a global mindset.
You can see that in technology, the development of planes. You can see that in social movements, women's equal rights, the civil rights movement.
Suddenly, one worker in an industrialized nation could produce what hundreds of workers were needed to produce in the 18th century and the early 19th century. This gave an advantage to nations in building ships, in exploiting technology, in changing the way that things were done, both intellectually and physically.
It's the 20th century. It's a whole new ballgame from the 19th century.
The one thing that people should know about World War I, probably the toll that it takes in terms of what happens with death counts after the war that are really complicated by the influenza, the spread of germs. And a lot of times we don't think about the impact of the war after the war.
It's uncertain of where the first case of the flu took place, although recent studies seem to indicate that an Army training camp in Kansas is where, and then all of a sudden it spread like wildfire across the United States and impacted major cities. Everyone knew someone who was impacted by the flu. Problem was, there weren't enough doctors to handle this.
So how do you care for those that have died, but also those that are incapacitated? And what is the trajectory of disease in the aftermath of war? And those are things that typically we don't associate with World War I, but are really actually very important.
The one thing that people should know about World War I was how unbelievably violent it was. World War I was by far the bloodiest war that Europe had experienced in centuries.
The Battle of the Somme, probably the most famous battle that the British troops were involved in, July 1st, 1916. It's 19,000 soldiers were killed in a single day. It's astronomical to think about that figure. These were young men who, of course, didn't come home. They didn't get married. They didn't have children. And a whole generation of British life was lost on a single battle.
What made the First World War a modern war was the way that it mobilized whole societies, and not just mobilized them as laborers and farmers, but also made whole societies targets. This is the first time that you see sort of mass targeting of civilian populations as well as soldiers. And I think that's what makes the First World War distinctive and distinctively modern.
Okay, so hopefully you learned something from the video. One thing you should know about World War I, obviously lots of things you should know. So I thought that was a good way to kind of recap what you've been learning. So remember this week, units 3.15 up until 3.19, and don't be afraid to work ahead. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me. And please make sure also you're doing the short answers or the essays. I have some learners who are skipping over them. Try them, okay? It's better to attempt than to completely leave it blank. And a lot of times, guys, it's just, a simple couple of sentences can be found in the lesson, okay? So don't be afraid to go back and look it over. Or if you have a question, you don't completely understand, what they're asking, okay? So reach out to me, send me a hangout, and I can help you. Okay, have a great week. Bye.